Hey everybody, welcome back to Dad Talk today. We are at the Young Women's Leadership Summit for Turning Point USA in Dallas, Texas. And I'm sitting here with a group of nice ladies. Why don't you say your name and tell them what you do?
I'm Taylor Rogers, and I am the president of the Clemson chapter of Turning Point at Clemson University.
And my name is Kira Marcy, and I am our chapter's vice president at Clemson University.
So tell us some of the things that y'all do with that.
Yeah, so we have about 350 members. We started in August, so we've been growing pretty quickly. There's a lot of conservatives on Clemson's campus, which is great. So we have chapter meetings, and then we also have social events. So it's just an opportunity for like-minded students to be able to come together and be able to talk about the things that we all agree on. There are some things, social issues that we do disagree about, but we basically promote, freedom of speech, free markets, capitalism. Socialism sucks, limited government. But we hosted some pretty big events this year. So as our first year as a chapter, we didn't, expect to have such a big membership turnout or events because, it usually they go to the campuses that start off a little slower. But we had a Back the Blue event with Tommy Lahren and Brandon Tatum, and so we got to have about 2,000 people show up either protesting or in the arena. So it was a big deal. It was a lot of fun. We made a lot of noise on Clemson's campus, so yeah.
And on Fox Nation, and on Tommy's personal account, and on the Turning Point account, and it was great. Yeah, picked up a lot of stamina for that one.
So we was having a little bit of a conversation before we got on the show. Y'all was telling me about some of the troubles that you're having with some of the guys on campus.
Yeah, I would just say, all universities are pretty left-leaning. There's a lot of indoctrination, whether that's professors or the administration. I would say Clemson tends to be pretty conservative. I'd say we're probably in the top 5 to 10 most conservative campuses, and we still struggle with professors who, make us think that men are, these horrible human beings, and, women need to stand up, and, how could you ever,
desire for a man to support you, which is
support you
that...
and support yourself, and it's very it's just a lot of that's what the university's telling you, whether it's your professor or the university itself. So I would say it's a toxic place for men to be. It's a toxic place for women to be, and
well, how scary is that? Because so you got the men being told if they have manly traits, that's toxic masculinity, not to be like a man. Women are being told you don't need a man. Do it on your own, and we wonder why there's gender confusion going on.
Oh yeah.
You take that. It's crazy how they shove this stuff down our kids' throats. On the other side of that, though, there is a conversation that I don't think they're bringing up as much. I can't say, when I was younger, ladies, I was a pastor's kid, so I definitely had my spell where I was not the greatest person, but I grew up, and becoming a father really transformed me. It really did. I learned a lot of things. I wasn't ready to be a father. I was a single father at the age of 20, raising a 1-year-old daughter by myself, and that changed who I was. And then once we started going through some of these, there's this thing that the men are these deadbeat dads. They don't want anything to do with their kids, that they abandon, they don't want to pay child support. That's not what we're seeing here. In the state of Texas, 93% of men that are fighting inside of family courts to be in their children's life end up without custody of their children. And this can be some of the most horrific scenes that you've ever seen. Like, mom's on drugs, she's not taking care of the kids, and no matter how much evidence he's got.
Well, yeah, because it's not PC.
It's not
because
PC.
It's the men's fault. It doesn't fit their agenda. It doesn't fit the liberal narrative for men to actually be involved in their children's life. So if it doesn't fit their narrative, then how dare they, allow something to happen that doesn't fulfill their agenda? And I think that goes for abortion too. All the time we hear abortion's okay because the men wouldn't be involved. And I'm like, well, you're not even giving the men a chance to be involved because you're making that decision for yourself. And I'm sorry, but it's not just the woman's baby. She does carry it.
Why doesn't Dad get a chance?
That's what I'm saying. Men need to be held more responsible for if they do, get a woman pregnant that's not ready. But I think also at the same time, men, if they're expected to be responsible for that, equally responsible as the woman, then they also should get an equal say in abortion. And you can't have it one way or the other. You either, say that men should have the responsibility of providing for the child if the woman decides to keep the child, and if not, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
There's just a double-sided narrative where it's like you said, they are granting custody to these women, but then it's not a woman's job to take care of a child.
Right.
They should be in the office. But like men aren't equipped to do it, but women shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that's what kids our age, men, boys, whatever you want to call them, are dealing with in the classroom, where they're told that they're awful and the white man is evil and they're just like inherently bad and all these things. So they're able to cave to the narrative and be like, you know what, no one really expects me to be that great, so I'm not going to be that great.
Oh, wow. What are some of the things you're seeing with it?
I mean, it's just like the complete just difference in what we know about, like, obviously we didn't live through the times, but like, I mean, the way that my dad and his friends and they treat their wives and the way that they talk about like the way they grew up is just, I'm lucky to have really great guy friends. They're great guys. They have great moms, great dads, great parents, and they were raised a certain way. Even kids who are raised a certain way in today's day and age, it's just easier for them to nothing's expected of them.
Right.
Like, chivalry is like dead. I mean, it's not really on our campus, I would say.
But we're lucky. We're in the Bible Belt.
We are very lucky to be where we are. But we even had a conversation the other day there's 2 more girls from our Clemson chapter here with us. We were talking about just the simple basis of a guy giving up his seat for a girl. And there's girls our age who literally be like, I don't want your seat. Like, I can stand, like, what, because I'm a girl? And I would be like, thank you.
Yeah.
I would be like, thank you. Like, that's the right thing to do. I will take your seat.
Well,
like, it's just being a gentleman. So then boys our age are so confused to where they could probably offer a seat to a girl at a bar before, and the girl got all mad because why did he think she needed it? So they're not going to do it again.
Right.
And then it just starts to spiral into, it's just gender confusion and confusion of no one's really taking a stand. And I mean, this whole summit is what we're trying to do.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to be here was to talk to people like y'all. You know, to get your perspective of what we're not seeing. So that really troubles my heart, knowing that some of that's going on, and we'll try to put a lot more emphasis on that. But you know, you cannot have equality in this country if somebody has a superiority.
Yep, and I think that's actually the biggest issue is, as women, we're told that we're discriminated against and that we're the victims and that men are terrible. And I actually think it would be absolutely terrible to be a white man in our country right now. I mean, my father, after COVID-19, couldn't get another job because all these companies are like, sorry, we want diversity. That's what in the meeting, he'd be like, what's the number one thing you're looking for? And they'd be like, diversity. They don't want a white man. They want a minority woman. And
but
so,
wouldn't that be racism?
And you would think it is. It's like, how is telling my father who's qualified that he can't work a job just because of the color of his skin or just because he's male? I mean, that is the definition of racism. We heard that from Candace Owens last night at the banquet, that is literally the definition of racism. And for somehow they're able to twist it and fit it to their narrative where, oh, that's not racist because you're white.
Right.
No, that's still racist.
And
It doesn't matter
what
if
they're
you're white.
looking for. It's what they're not looking for.
Right.
We have a lack of, like, I mean, you could look at Taylor and I, you could make any assumption you want. Yes, we look like basic white girls who go to Clemson University and we're in a sorority and we go to the football games. Sure, you can think anything you want. My mom's dad, off the boat from Ireland. Like, we're immigrant family, my dad's family, immigrant, everyone's an immigrant.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, my mom looks the same way I do, and I'm sure everyone assumes that of her. They don't know that her dad came over and was a bartender in California until he became a top salesman in his career.
Yeah.
Like, there's lack of emphasis on the American dream. There's lack of emphasis on boys turning into men. There's just, a lot is missing.
And
at this point, everything's missing. There's not too much, in my opinion.
And I think a lot of people assume like, oh, you're white and so you must be well off and you get everything you want. And like my father, he didn't have a father, and so for him, he worked for everything. He paid for college. He worked multiple jobs to be able to pay for college while he was there, and he worked his butt off when he got out of college. And like that's how he's able to provide for me and my family, and that now he can provide for me to go to college. And like that's how it's supposed to work. That someone starts from the bottom in America, and you're able to work your way up, and then leave a legacy of like family members who can provide for themselves. And my father has shown how a man can, work his way to having a wealthy lifestyle in America and, be able to provide for his family. And now we're being told that that's the system. That's systematically racist. That's not systematically racist. That's hard work. My father started from nothing. He had one pair of shoes in high school.
Right.
That one pair of tennis shoes lasted him 4 years and he didn't get another one. So I just think that we're being told that men are inherently evil and they're part of the system, and it's not a system. I think men have had to work hard, and obviously now, like,
I mean, there's just this obsession with the woke Gen Z or whatever they call our age group.
Yeah.
Females having this obsession with, you need to come from nothing or you're a terrible person. Like,
Right.
someone started at the bottom so that their, like, descendants wouldn't have to. Like, the way that, like, family members have worked, my grandfather, my dad, Taylor's dad, they worked that way so that we wouldn't have to, not so that, oh, we have to start over, because if you don't come from nothing, you have privilege.
right.
Right.
And like,
It's not privilege, it's worth
and then
ethic.
I've learned that from my family, that I need to work hard, and that's how that carries on through generations, and that's why you have big family businesses and stuff like that. So I just think that ultimately, like, my father has been a great leader of the household, and I don't think my family would have ended up, like, as spiritually well off or financially well off, or any like how we are as a family without my father. And so I think it's really important to be the leader of the household. The Bible says that the man is supposed to be the leader of the
Yep.
household. I think that's something else that, if you're a Christian woman, like, I think a lot of people take it out of context about being submissive. Like, it just means that God made the man to be able to lead the household in a spiritual direction, in a financial direction, and you need a man who wants you to be the best you can be in Christ and for yourself. And I just think that we really lack that because they're scared to be the leaders because they're told they shouldn't be.
Well, and that doesn't mean the woman doesn't have value.
Right.
If a man's
100%,
a leader.
100%.
But I mean, I think that's kind of what is portrayed.
Right. It's like if I, acknowledge that my husband is the leader of the household in a spiritual way, then that's me giving up my right to be, a great woman with a great career, and that's not what that's about.
Right.
And but I think
if you do desire to marry a man who's going to be the breadwinner, who's financially going to take care of the family, you're raising, in that, assuming about that situation, you would be raising children. You're literally raising the next generation of humans in America, on Earth. There's no greater job than that, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And let me ask, both of you came from an intact family?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the things that you learned from your dads?
Oh boy.
Things I learned. I would say for me, it was, I started working when I was 15. As soon as I was allowed to work, I was working. If there was something, that I wanted, it was, you need to work for that. And so I think hard work has really been instilled in me. He's very determined. He's gotten where he's gotten from nothing. And so I think he wanted me to realize that, even though he's able to provide for me, it's not just like I have to work hard for something that I want.
The value of hard work.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest thing is, like, our generation lacks hard work because of instant gratification.
I'm with you. Yes.
Yeah.
Instant gratification. I mean, like,
There's an
I want
employment
something on
crisis.
Amazon and it's here in a day. It's just like we're so used to getting what we want when we want it. And I think that that's probably the most dangerous part of our generation.
Right.
So I would say that's probably the main thing I've learned from my father, but just also, holding firm to my foundations. My father, he's never wavered. With the whole coronavirus thing, he was like, I'm not wearing a mask. You go into grocery store. When the thing first started, and he was like, if you want me to wear my mask, I'll shop somewhere else. I'm not letting the government tell me what to do.
I'm that guy.
Yeah, I'm that girl. So I would say, I am extremely strong in my convictions. I think that's probably when people know me for that. That is something that I don't change from, but I think that is what I've learned from my father, is that he does not waver from his convictions, and whether that's in Christ or in politics, he stands firm no matter what.
Awesome. How about you?
Just building off the topic of hard work, which is just a generational issue at this point, where, I don't think it's instilled, again, in the boys at our age, or even just everyone our age, but also finding value in the work that you're doing, and being happy. Like my dad always says, like, you gotta be happy. You gotta wake up every day and you gotta go to work and you have to be happy. So if you're working in something that makes you unhappy, your entire life is gonna change to that too. Like, if you're gonna be an unhappy person in your job, you're gonna be unhappy when you come home. You're gonna be unhappy when you see your wife and your kids, and everything is just gonna be bitter.
Yeah.
So, my dad tells me, you can marry a man, all you need is that he goes to work every day. He's like, I don't care if he's in the trades, I don't care if he works in the stock market, I don't care what he does. He goes to work every day and he enjoys what he does. That's what it's got to be.
How would your lives have been different if your father wouldn't have been there?
So I would say, like, especially like in minority communities and in inner cities, the number one problem is that fathers are not in the family, whatever reason that is. And I know, a lot of times they try to, more welfare or whatever for single moms, and I'm like, no, let's fix the actual problem, which is having a father. If you look at the statistics, families that have fathers, their kids are however much more likely to graduate from high school. I mean, it's actually super significant. I cannot imagine my life without my dad. My mom, love her. She's the opposite of my dad in a lot of senses. So in terms of saving money and all those kind of things, we probably would have been struggling. But my dad has taught me a lot of lessons, and then my mom's taught me a lot of lessons. They complement each other very well. So I think if I didn't have my father, there would be a lot of like aspects to my life. I wouldn't say my mom works super hard, so I can't say that.
Yeah, no,
They
I
both
love
work
my mom
hard,
to death.
but-
I talk to her probably 10 times more than I talk to my dad, just texting, calling. But I'm a mini version of him, and I cannot imagine just not only our home, but myself without him, really.
Yeah.
My brother would not be who he is. He would never get just like pinched or smacked if he walked in front of me, or I mean, I'm sure he'd be a great kid anyway, but it's the little things. It's like if we stand up from a dinner table, my dad is not walking out of the restaurant until my sister, my mom, and I have gone in front of him.
So what is the difference that you see in the men and the male influences in your life, your fathers, versus the kids now? I know you touched a little bit on that, but what are some of the key differences that you're seeing in the older generation versus the one that you're going to school with?
They're babies. It's a perpetual babying of, I know kids who have great dads, and they're great kids, and they're great boys, and they're going to be great men. It's just going to take them longer to get there. And just the fact that, like, I have, like, friends who the first time they did a load of laundry was like freshman year, like college, which I mean, same. My mom does my laundry if I ask her to, like, whatever. But it's just the concept of knowing how, or just figuring out how for yourself. Like, there's just no ambition. There's no go-getters. I mean, we're talking about a generalization. Of course, there are great young men our
I got
age,
you.
but overwhelmingly, it has turned into this generation of, I'm not going to figure it out because someone will do it for me. And that goes for men.
And I think, on the opposite, it's either, that way, or it's that there's a lack of parenting. And my parents are my best friend, and they let me do whatever I want. And, as nice as that may sound, in the moment, you need a parent that will set you straight. You need a parent that will teach you your lesson. And I think we really lack that. Most of my friends, their parents, do everything for them, but then let them do everything that they want to do.
Say not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
Right, and I'm like, I am friends with my mom is one of my, I would say, my best friends, but my mom is still my parent. My dad is still my, I can talk to my dad, but he's still going to be my father. And I think we lack parents, and I think it started in their generation, that maybe not started, but it comes from their generation of not being good at being parents.
Boundaries.
Yes,
There
no boundaries.
There are schools, I mean, I'm from Pennsylvania, there are like Quaker schools, not to like attack like the Quakers, but like the schools where like I'm gonna be in third grade calling my teacher by their first name, like no, like let's keep the sense of respect. There's adults, adults are not to blame, because at a certain point you have to grow up, but these people who are raising kids to think that every adult is their equal, and every adult can be their best friend, and they can talk to their adult like they can, like their teachers, like they can talk to their classmates, and that's just not right. That's not the way I was raised. That is not the way, in my opinion, people should be raised.
Right.
There used to be a sense of respect for elders and for just people above you, people in positions of power.
Now, if you didn't respect your elders, how would your dads receive that?
I'd be grounded, and I would not have any electronics, and you'd probably put a Bible in my room, and
You guys see what the problem is here, right?
yeah.
I was kind of bringing this full circle. You're living in a fatherless generation.
Yeah.
1 out of every 3 kids in the United States are without a father in the home. In the African American household, 80% is without a father. All these things that your fathers instilled in you, this generation don't have those fathers to instill in
It's
them.
missing.
It's missing.
The home front is just not complete anymore.
Right.
And
And
Candace
it's-
talked
and
to us last night
it's-
about how it's an
yeah.
agenda to just
Yeah.
break down
It's-
this home front.
It's all about breaking down the nuclear family, and everything that they do leads back to breaking down the nuclear family, breaking down this idea that you are supposed to have a father that is the spiritual leader of the household, and that's what they want to get rid of, because they know that America is founded on the conservative values of a nuclear family, and if they can break that down, they can do anything. Because if your family betrays each other, then you have nothing. And so as soon as that's gone, they know that they have full control over us, and
They're making weak people, they're making weak men, they're making an entire weak society.
so they can control us, and
Yeah.
that's their agenda.
You break down the family, you can completely control a nation. It's a part of the Communist Manifesto.
Yep.
It is a planned agenda, and we've got to start speaking out. And ladies like you, I mean, where you're at and what you're doing have such a huge opportunity to bring that message.
Because if you think about the first thing that, like, if I'm going to make a decision
Yeah.
that would just generally be considered wrong, and I said that I was going to do it, the first person to tell me I was not going to do it would be my mom or my dad. Or my sister, really. My sister, too.
Yeah.
My brother probably wouldn't hear about it for 2 weeks, but...
Are you hearing many of the conversations like we're having right now inside of the schools?
I've had this conversation with my guy friends. I've told them
Yeah.
straight up. I was just like, that is just... My guy friends, they get bothered by me all the time. I'm breaking my own rule right now, but it's different for women. Women are allowed to wear hats inside. Like, if you're sitting at a dinner table, you're taking your hat off. If we're going somewhere, I'm walking in front of you. If we're walking on the street, I'm walking on the inside, you're on the street. It's just the common, just like, chivalry. Like, it's just not there anymore.
Right.
I think it's something that's not talked about. I think, it's not something that is like abortion or climate change or like these social issues that we think are social issues, social justice that we talk about all the time. Them breaking down the nuclear family is such a hidden agenda that I think it's something that, happens under our noses with professors and with college administrations and at universities. And, I think saying things like, my dad should be the spiritual leader of the household and he should be the one who leads our family. Like, if I were to say that to like a student, a college student, they'd be like, oh my gosh, like you're anti-woman.
How do you think that makes your mom feel? Like, you don't think your mom has any
so
worth?
You don't,
No, I do.
Your mom has no worth. You like are so disrespectful to women, and how could you ever think that? I'm like, well,
My mom would be right behind me saying the same thing I am.
So I think it is a hidden agenda. I think they've done a very good job of hiding it. And I think, we don't talk about it enough, and it's something that doesn't get discussed enough. So, yeah, I mean, again, like you said, if African-American families had fathers in the home, the minority communities would probably be so much different. But the Democrats don't want them to know that, and that's because they want them to be under their control and continue to vote for them. So they don't actually fix the problem. They just give them a little bit more money so they can make it by and still need the government.
Well, you know what those statistics were in like the 60s and 70s? 20%.
Wow.
It went 60% more to 80%
Candace mentioned
now.
yesterday.
That's crazy.
That it is completely ridiculous. And then on election night, they told everybody to vote like a mother. And you're talking about a race that has been completely plagued by a fatherless epidemic. There's so many of those little subtle things that they put in there, and we don't realize the consequences that it has.
Well, yeah. And it's funny how they're so like pro women, and then they use minority men for votes, and it's just this whole cycle of
It's pro women, but they
of
take
identity politics that means absolutely nothing to them but votes.
Pandering is a huge thing.
Yeah.
The pro women movement that the left supports and drives this agenda of, it's got to be just the most ridiculous thing that's happened in our generation. I don't have a better vocabulary word for it because it's just, I'm dumbfounded. They say that they're pro women, and then they take everything that women have that are unique to us.
Right.
They want to take they want to take the way that we are the only people who can have children.
Yeah.
Like, physically, men cannot do that. Why would we want to take that away? You're not taking it away, but
yeah.
you are essentially. You want to put men in our sports.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You say you're pro women, but then you take men and you put them in women's sports so that women can't win anymore.
Because we're not gonna. I'm sure there are sports that women can be better than men, but if you're gonna put a man and women, 9 times out of 10, I'm making the statistic up obviously, but just growing up with a very athletic family of 1 million cousins, and the girls are extreme athletes. We are a family that is primarily girl cousins. If the boys are playing, the boys are winning, and that's just how it is.
And that's scientific. That's how God made us. Men are naturally stronger. I mean, that's a fact. Again, like you can't fight the facts. Like that's fact, whether they want to,
Right.
admit it or not. Men are stronger than women, and
We were born different.
and that's the whole point.
There's
we have
nothing
different
wrong with that.
And they want
responsibilities,
to
and
take
that's
it away. They have
okay.
this obsession with normalization, and let's normalize this, let's normalize that,
Yeah.
and let's just make everyone the same. But you're amazing, and you're beautiful, and you're so different, and that's what makes you amazing. But we should all be the same. They want a level playing field, except for the fact that, oh well, if you apply to college, everyone's the same normal playing field. But if you're a minority, step up, separate pile. You're gonna have. I mean, it's just.
Well, it goes to a man being a man and somehow devalues a woman. We talk about those little subtle hints. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Yes.
Well, so recently Brad Pitt just won 50% custody. There was 50-50, and they said Angelina Jolie lost, Brad Pitt won. He won the same thing that she's got, but it was looked at as a win for him to get equality and a loss for her. Most of the time, these guys are fighting tooth and nail to try to be fathers. They're not being gave a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it worries me to hear that about the younger generation. These guys are being told not to be men like your fathers.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to become of that?
Yeah.
It's going to be scary. There needs to be a big change made before we are. I mean, I'm a senior in college.
Yeah.
Next year, the guys that I hang out with at school and that I've hung out with my whole life, they're going to be working professionals. They're going to be in the real world. They
Does that
are going to
scare
be.
you?
That's terrifying. I love my guy friends. I hope they're going to see this and they're going to be upset with me. You're all amazing, except for when I tell you you're not. And it is just that ability, right, to have that conversation. Young people our age, the girls are either, I hate all men, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's make a TikTok about it. Or they're just going to be doing whatever the boys tell them to. And, they're quiet and they sit back. And being a northern girl in a southern school, I've seen that firsthand. And I've had boys come up to me and ask, where are you from? Because it's not South Carolina. And I've heard that multiple times, and I don't care. I'm proud of it.
And it's, I hate all men, but let me sell myself out for one real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
We've completely, women are, I hate all men, and men don't value me enough, and they don't treat me like the woman I deserve to be treated like. And I'm like, well, you slept with them the first night. What do you expect?
And then I'm posting certain things on social media, but I posted it for myself. Well, you did it. You can take a picture for yourself. You're going to post it for your 1,200 followers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they got other things. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Happy spouse, happy house. Where was the equality in there? There's so many different things, and I believe it's more than what we could talk about all in one day. But I'm curious. We talk about different solutions on this all the time on this show. What are some things that you ladies think could be done to kind of fight back at this being done?
I think one, for me at least, as a believer, it starts with like a Christian revival. I think that men need a spiritual revival. I don't think that we have enough men who, really do go to church and want to be a man that lives for Christ. And I think, two, we need to stop being PC. You should be confident in being a man and being a strong man and saying that, I want to be a leader for my wife and for my family. And I think that men need to start being okay with a girl getting mad at them for holding open the door. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They need to, I think women have gotten a lot bolder. I think men need to pick it back up. And I think they need to be okay with not being PC because, in our world, what's right is wrong, what's wrong is right.
I agree.
So I think that, people need to realize that all this stuff that they're being fed is wrong, and they need to do the right thing. But again, that goes back to my first point of, having a moral compass and being a man of God. So I think that's the first thing that needs to happen. I think our country, was founded on Christian principles. I know a lot of people don't like to admit that, and they say, separation of church and state, which, you have the freedom to worship whoever you want to worship in our country, and that's amazing. You should be able to worship whoever you want to worship. But our moral, ethical standards in the U.S. were set by men who, valued Christian principles, and even men who weren't Christian, at the time, they still valued those principles because it's common sense, they make sense, it's order, it's discipline, and that's what results in freedom. And so I think that, we do need to go back to these basic Christian principles that our nation was founded on that we're now starting to move away from.
Wow. There you go, Taylor.
Thank you.
I mean, again, we can drone on and on about it. It starts at the home front. It starts with parenting. It starts with the lack of parenting. It starts with the lack of boundaries that needs to be set between a child and an adult and a superior and someone who is just someone you need to listen to. There's just this lack of respect and understanding that some things are the way they are just because. Like, as a kid, the worst thing you want to hear from your mom is why? Because I said so. That's the worst thing, but sometimes that's the only reason. It's because they said so.
Yeah.
Why should my brother take out the trash when my mom asks him to? Because she said so. There doesn't need to be an explanation. There's no explanation owed to, I mean, we heard a speaker earlier this weekend talk about how we are teaching self-esteem and not self-control. I think it was Charlie who said that.
Yeah.
I think it was Charlie.
Well, that's a good one.
And
That's too much now.
yeah, and it's just, he's completely right. We're teaching kids that they are great and everything is wrong, instead of this is a great country, this is a great place, and this is like paraphrasing what Charlie said, but it spoke to me. And maybe, you know what, maybe you need to work on yourself, and maybe there's something wrong with you, not wrong with you, but there's something that you can improve before you want to point fingers at everything around you.
And that's a powerful thing when you can observe self and where you're coming up short before looking at everybody else. That's not a bad thing. People look at it as a bad thing, but that's how you learn. That's how you grow in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you got to be open to hearing that. So.
There's going to be no progress without change, and something needs to change.
I love this. Tell everybody where they can keep up with what you're doing.
Well, I mean, you can keep up with us at our Instagram handle is at Clemson
Clemson
TPUSA. My personal handle is Taylor_Rogers, no D. It's just ROGERS.
I'm Kira KM, CIARAKM. But make sure you check out our Clemson TPUSA account. We've got some great social media coordinators on our leadership board. We like to share kind of things that everyone our age should be interested in and things that we hope that people are interested in. We show what we're up to. We're doing a little bit of a takeover right now for our YWLS weekend. So you're seeing what the four of us are up to here. And that's pretty much it.
I love it. Ladies, I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you very much. Me too.
All right, guys, stick around. We'll be right back.